एनालिसिस फॉर 22 सितंबर 2023। आज के एजेंडा में हम एडिटोरियल सेशन डिस्कस करेंगे विच इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द इंडियन एक्सप्रेस, इम्यूनिटी ऑफ लेजिस्लेटर्स फ्रॉम ब्राइबरी केस और द चार्जेस। फिर उसके बाद हम न्यूज अपडेट डिस्कस करेंगे जिसमें नेशनल न्यूज, इंटरनेशनल न्यूज, इंपॉर्टेंट डेज, अवार्ड्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स होंगे। Then lastly, we'll discuss about legal news update, which is coming from Honorable Supreme Court, High Court of different states in India. चलिए पहले हम एडिटोरियल सेशन को एक्सप्लेन करते हैं। इम्यूनिटी ऑफ लेजिस्लेटर्स फ्रॉम ब्राइबरी चार्जेस, ये पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक हमेशा से हमारे एक कॉन्वर्सेशन डायलॉग का पार्ट रहा। अब इस पर्टिकुलर प्रोविजन को हमें ये समझना होगा कि क्या इसके लेजिस्लेटिव प्रोविजंस है, क्या क्या पर्टिकुलर केस इसमें डिसाइड करे गए हैं और आज इसकी बात हम क्यों कर रहे हैं। चलिए, द सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑन सितंबर 20 रेफर टू अ 7 जज बेंच। क्वेश्चन क्या था जब रेफरिंग हुई, that whether the legal immunity of legislator under Article 105 subclause 2 and 194 subclause 2 of the Constitution protects them from being prosecuted in the criminal court for the offense of offering of or accepting a bribery। सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन था कि आर्टिकल 105 सब क्लॉज 2 और 194 सब क्लॉज 2 में जो भी इम्यूनिटी लेजिस्लेटर को दी गई है, क्या उन्हें वो प्रोटेक्ट करती है being prosecuted in criminal court from accepting or offering the bribe। Observing the need to examine the correctness of its 1998 Constitution bench ruling in P.V. Narasimha Rao versus State, a 5-judge bench led by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud referred the verdict to a larger bench for a fresh consideration। In its 1998 ruling, the top court had held that legislators have immunity against criminal prosecution on bribery charges for any speech or vote in the parliament। चलिए, provisions granting legislator immunity from prosecution। अब हम इसके legislative perspective को समझते हैं कि particular article जो हमारे constitution में दिया गया है उसके क्या provisions है और क्या वो protect करता है। Broadly, Article 105 deals with power, privileges of the House of Parliament and the members and community thereof। Nutshell में बोला जाए, Article 105(2) exempts MPs from any legal action for any statement made or act done in the course of their duty। Additionally, the immunity extends to certain non-members like Attorney General of India or a minister who may not be a member but speaks in the House। In cases where number of oversteps are exceeded in the contours of admissible free speech, the Speaker of the House will deal with it as opposed to the court। Meanwhile, अब ये हमने बात करी 105 सब क्लॉज 2 की, अब हम बात करते हैं 194 सब क्लॉज 2 की, जो एक्सटेंड करता है इम्यूनिटी एमएलएस एंड स्टेट्स को। No member of the legislature of a state shall be liable to any proceedings in any court in respect of anything said or any vote given by him in the legislature or any immunity thereof, any committee thereof, and no person shall be so liable in respect of the publication by or under the authority of a house of such legislature of any report, paper, votes, or proceeding। In the present case, the court has to decide if the legal immunity enjoyed by parliamentarians extend to prosecution for demanding or taking a bribe। तो आज अगर हम बात करते हैं 105 सब क्लॉज 2 की और 194 सब क्लॉज 2 की, तो ये एक लेजिस्लेटिव प्रोविजंस है, बट कोर्ट के पास ही जाता है कि क्या अगर लेजिस्लेटर्स के को ब्राइबरी चार्जेस लगे हैं तो क्या उनको क्रिमिनल कोर्ट में प्रोसिक्यूट करा जा सकता है। चलिए, the case arose out of a plea filed by Sita Soren, a member of Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, who was accused of accepting a bribe to cast her vote for a certain candidate in Rajya Sabha elections for 2012। CBI probe was conducted and a charge sheet was filed against Soren, alleged offences under IPC and Prevention of Corruption Act for bribery, criminal conspiracy, and criminal misconduct by a public servant। Soren approached Jharkhand High Court with a quashing plea claiming immunity under Article 194 subclause 2. The plea was rejected and the apex court was approached. चलिए अब बात करते हैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस पर्टिकुलर केस में क्या बोला. In 2014, when Soren approached the Supreme Court, a two-judge bench had noted that since the issue was substantial and of general importance, it should be placed to a larger bench of 3 judges. ये 2014 में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला. On March 7, 2019, three-judge bench led by Honorable Third and Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi took up the appeal and observed that the Jharkhand High Court judgment dealt with the 1988 Narasimha Rao verdict and hence should be referred to a larger bench. In the 1988 case, the court held that parliamentarians are entitled to immunity from criminal prosecution when it comes to their speech and vote in the House. चलिए, finally taking up the matter on Wednesday, the 5-judge bench said, we have the considered view that the correctness of the view of the majority in P.V. Narasimha Rao case should be reconsidered by a larger bench of 7 judges. The court also added that the purpose of Article 105 subclause 2 and 194 subclause 2 is to ensure that members of parliament and state legislatures can discharge their duties in an atmosphere of freedom without fearing the consequences that may ensure for how they speak or exercise their right to vote on the floor of the House. Now, what was the 1998 ruling that Supreme Court referred to? It was a P.V. Narasimha Rao case concerning Shibu Soren, who also happens to be the father-in-law of Sita Soren, the petitioner in the present case. In Shibu's case, he, along with some of his party MPs, was accused of taking bribes to vote against the no confidence motion against the then P.V. Narasimha Rao government. 5 judges bench का वो केस था to opinion that the protection under Article 105 subclause 2 and 194 subclause 2 and the immunity granted could not extend to cases concerning bribery. However, majority view क्या था कोर्ट का? Acutely conscious of the seriousness of the offense, the bench sense of indignation should not lead to a narrow construction of the constitutional provisions, as this may result in hampering the guarantee of parliamentary participation and the debate. Thus, the top court in 1998 quashed the case against the MPs, citing immunity under Article 105 subclause 2. Essentially, this 5 judges bench ruling saved Soren from criminal prosecution. तो अब आपको पूरा की पूरा जो भी इशू है वो समझ आ गया होगा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 7 जजेस बेंच में क्यों ये पर्टिकुलर मैटर को रेफर करा गया है, पास्ट में 5 जजेस बेंच ने क्या रूलिंग दी थी और आज ऑनरेबल कोर्ट का क्या स्टैंड है. इसमें आगे देखते हैं what Supreme Court will say on this particular matter in the near future. So this was all about the editorial session which we discussed today. Now let us start with the national news of the day. Aviation Ministry permits Akasa Air to launch international flights. The Civil Aviation Ministry has granted permission to newly established airline Akasa Air to start international flights. The permission comes at a time when the airline is facing severe turbulence due to abrupt resignation of 43 pilots who have chosen to join rival airlines. Recently, Akasa Air submitted to the Delhi High Court that the sudden departure of these pilots who had reportedly not served their mandatory notice period of 6 months or 1 year for captains had compelled the carrier to cancel 24 flights per day in September. Currently, Akasa Air is scheduled to operate about 120 flights per day. The airline exclusively utilizes B737 MAX planes in its fleet. The airline is yet to announce the destination of its first international flight. So it's a very knowledgeable information for us that Akasa Air has started international flights, and it can certainly help you in writing the essays when it comes to aviation industry, aviation ministry as a whole. Chaliye. India's rhino population on the rise report. In what could be considered a bright spot in the conservation efforts of the vulnerable species, the greater one-horned rhino population in India and Nepal, which once numbered as 100 in early 1900, is reportedly on the rise. World Rhino Day. प्लीज इसे याद रखिएगा, एग्जामिनेशन पर्सपेक्टिव से बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है. World Rhino Day is celebrated internationally on September 22nd. The greater one-horned rhino is the largest of the rhino species. Once widespread across the entire northern part of the Indian subcontinent, rhino population plummeted as they were hunted for a sport or a kill as agricultural pest. Poaching of rhinos in Assam, which is the home of the majority of one-horned rhino population in India, was rampant in the past. Chaliye. The next national news of the day: Center appoints 3 members to antitrust regulator CCI for faster decision making. The government ने क्या करा है? 3 new members को appoint करा है to the Competition Commission of India to expedite the antitrust regulators' decision-making process. These appointments are particularly significant as the CCI is actively investigating several prominent international corporations for suspected antitrust breaches. The appointment of these members come at a crucial time as 2 former CCI members, Bhagwant Singh Bishnoi and Sangeeta Verma, retired in late August and on September 17, respectively. Their retirement had raised concerns about the regulator potentially being left with only the chairperson, which could have disrupted its functioning. So, Center ने 3 members को appoint किया for the antitrust regulator in Competition Commission of India. चलिए, Ranveer Singh and Pritam team up as official cricket World Cup 2023 anthem is released. The International Council has recently launched the official anthem of World Cup 2023, which begins in India on October 5th. The anthem is called Dil Jashan Bole and it stars Bollywood actor Ranveer Singh in the lead role. The anthem also features choreographer Dhanashri Verma, who is the wife of Indian leg spinner Yuzvendra Chahal. The 3-minute 22-second long anthem shows a journey through India on the board, the One Day Express. The next national news coming up for you guys is ISSF World Cup Rio de Janeiro. Nischal wins silver in women's rifle 3 positions event. Teenage Indian rifle shooter Nischal won silver in the women's 50-meter rifle 3 positions at the International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup, which happened in Brazil to give India a second medal on the final day of the tournament. So, ये बहुत important national news है for the day. President of India, Smt Droupadi Murmu inaugurates 2-day conference of National Human Rights Institute Asia Pacific region, which held in New Delhi. The conference was kicked off at a plenary hall of Vigyan Bhavan. Apart from this, the NHRC India also organized a seminar on business and human rights. बहुत बेसिक सी न्यूज है. अगर आप 1-2 बार ये पर्टिकुलर स्लाइड्स को रीड भी करेंगे, that will entail in your mind and it will generally help you to increase your knowledge on the current affairs. So बहुत बेसिक सी न्यूज है. आप 2-3 बार इस पर्टिकुलर स्लाइड्स को पढ़िए, it will entail in your mind. Second edition of India's Naval Innovation and Indigenisation Seminar, Swalamban 2023. The second edition of the India's Naval Innovation and Indigenisation Seminar, Swalamban 2023 is scheduled, which will happen in 4th and 5th October. Now, the Honorable Prime Minister launched the 75 challenges for the startups, MSMEs as a part of the Sprint Initiative. Sprint Initiative stands for Supporting Pole Vaulting in R&D through Innovations for Defense Excellence. अब की highlight ये particular initiatives की क्या है? Is the issuance of 75 challenges to startups and micro, small and medium enterprises. These challenges serve as a clarion call to harness indigenous innovation for the benefit of Indian Navy. चलिए, Coming up to the next important days, International Day of Peace, 21st September. It is observed on 21st September every year around the world. The UN General Assembly has declared this as a day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace through observing 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. अब ये पर्टिकुलर डे के बारे में जब आप पढ़ते हैं तो आप डेज के साथ उसकी थीम भी पढ़ा करें, बिकॉज थीम कैन बी अ रेलेवेंट क्वेश्चन इन योर प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जामिनेशन. This year theme is Actions for Peace, our ambitions for the global goal. It is call to action that recognizes our individual and collective responsibility to foster peace, which in turn contributes to the realization of sustainable development goals. And achieving the sustainable development goals will create a culture of peace for all. चलिए इंटरनेशनल न्यूज की तरफ बढ़ते हैं. अजरबैजान Armenia reached ceasefire deal for breakaway Nagorno-Karabakh. Ethnic Armenians in Azerbaijan's breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh agreed to a Russian proposal for a ceasefire on Wednesday, 24 hours after the Azerbaijan began an offensive to take control of the enclave that killed dozens and injured hundreds. ये basic news है, generally to entail your to give more knowledge to you when it comes to world current affairs. चलिए लीगल अपडेट की तरफ चलते हैं, which is coming from the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Selling LLP versus Bafna Motors Mumbai Private Limited and others. ये सरफेसी एक्ट के अंडर ये पर्टिकुलर वर्डिक्ट है. Borrower's right to redeem mortgage extinguishes once bank publishes auction notice for secured assets. Supreme Court has held that borrower right of redemption of mortgage under the SARFAESI Act, which is Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets, and Enforcement of Security Interest Act, will get extinguished once the bank publishes an auction notice for the sale of secured assets. Now, जो Supreme Court ने particular verdict दिया है, under the auction notice, which is under 13 subclause 8, की verdict third para में दे के रखी है. It constituted an extinguishment of right of redemption of mortgage. The court held that once the section 13 subclause 8 stage was over and the auction was concluded, the borrower did not have any right of redemption under Article 13 subclause 8 left. One more judgment coming from Madhya Pradesh High Court. Can't prosecute a husband under Section 377 IPC as Section 375 IPC exempting marital sex covers all possible penile penetration. In a significant observer liable to add to the ongoing debate regarding the criminalization of marital rape, the Madhya Pradesh High Court has observed that after the 2013 amendment to the definition Section 375 IPC, which talks about rape, there is no place for any unnatural offense to take place between a husband and a wife, as per Section 377 of IPC. In this regard, the court pursuing the definition of rape as per Section 375 noted that Section 375 includes penetration of the penis in the parts of body, that is vagina, urethra, or anus of a woman, and since consent is not required when the sexual act happens between husband and wife, then any unnatural offense cannot be made out in such cases. So this is an important judgment when you write anything regarding IPC or any essays. This can be an important verdict, which is the latest one coming from Madhya Pradesh High Court on 375 and 377 IPC. That's all for the today's news update and the legal news. Do keep joining and do subscribe our channel. Thank you.